Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here this evening. Welcome to the BRISMES Annual Lecture. Before I introduce our distinguished speaker for this evening, I just want to first of all give my thanks to the co-sponsors for the event this evening, which is the International State Crime Initiative, the Centre for the Study of Race, Class and Empire, and the Global Public Health Unit at Queen Mary University of London. I also want to say thank you to Rosa Sanson, BRISMES manager, for all the logistics for this evening. So first of all, I'm also going to just introduce BRISMES Vice President, or one of our BRISMES Vice Presidents, Dr. Shari Plonsky, who is just going to say a few words about BRISMES as an organisation and the activities we do. And then following that, I will introduce the speaker for this evening. Go ahead, Shari.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shari Plonsky. I'm one of BRISMES's co-vice presidents. I'm also a senior lecturer at Queen Mary University of London. And I was asked and honored to say a little something about BRISMES as an organization before we get into tonight's lecture. I think obviously you're all here, so you probably know quite a bit about BRISMES, but just a few words. We're the UK's leading society for Middle East studies, and kind of a space for anyone who researches, teaches, or studies the region is very much welcome as part of BRISMES. That being members here include accessing our amazing journal, the British Journal of Middle East Studies, and being part of a huge range of scholarly events that we put together. And we also have this really amazingly active mentorship and professionalization program for early career researchers, most of it led by other early career researchers, but also kind of helmed by other members of the committee. And that includes, the kind of prizes and awards we've created that are specifically geared at supporting the development of scholars who are just after their PhD and that might not have institutional support for their research and writing. And we also have an annual conference, which year on year brings together exceptional scholars from the region, from the UK, and well beyond. And this year, the conference will be taking place in Newcastle from the 1st to the 3rd of July on the theme of destruction, loss, and recovery in the Middle East. And I also want to say that the call for papers is open until the 13th of December, and I really want to encourage everyone here to come and to please spread the word about it. But I also wanted to say that BRISMES is this space where our political commitments are really given home. Whether we're talking about the ongoing work of our Committee for Academic Freedom or the organization's advocacy around BDS in Palestine, this is that space where we get to really speak our politics. And to us, it's really important because what is a professional association like BRISMES for if it's not to be able to agitate politically at moments like this when we're witnessing genocide and our institutions remain completely complicit in it, which is also why it's such an honor to have Ghassan Abu-Sittah here giving our annual lecture, and why the annual lecture is such an important platform and key part of our calendar. And I'm going to leave it now for our speakers. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Sorry, thanks, Shari. And I also just wanted to briefly say that Jose Martinez is also on the platform here, and he is the BRISMES secretary. So that we also have another vice president and a treasurer, but I'm not sure if they're here this evening. All right, so let me now move to introduce our speaker for this evening. So BRISMES is privileged to host Dr. Ghassan Abu-Sittah as the distinguished speaker for this year's annual lecture, which is entitled Witness to Genocide, a Conversation with Dr. Ghassan Abu-Sittah. This lecture, which is being held on the 29th of November, carries special resonance as it coincides with the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. against the backdrop of Israel's genocidal war against the people of Gaza since the 7th of October 2023, Dr. Abu-Sittah's testimony will offer an essential opportunity for reflection, insight, and advocacy on one of the most pressing crises of our time. Dr. Abu-Sittah is a renowned Palestinian-British plastic and reconstructive surgeon, humanitarian, and academic. Born in Kuwait in 1969 to a Palestinian father and Lebanese mother, he pursued his medical education at the University of Glasgow, where he also completed postgraduate residency training. He further specialised in craniofacial and cleft surgery through fellowships at Great Ormond Street Hospital for Sick Children in London and trauma reconstruction at the Royal London Hospital. His professional expertise is matched only by his personal commitment to providing care under the most challenging conditions. Over his eminent career, Dr. Abu-Sittah has worked in numerous conflict zones, including Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and of course the Gaza Strip, where his efforts have saved countless lives. He has gained international recognition for his work on war-related injuries, particularly among children, and for addressing the profound medical and psychological impacts of violence. His dedication to these vulnerable populations extends beyond the operating room. At the American University of Beirut Medical Center, where he served as head of the Division of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, he co-founded and directed the Conflict Medicine Program at the Global Health Institute, focusing on the unique intersections of healthcare, war, and human rights. Dr. Abu-Sittah's expertise extends into the academic and public spheres. He has published extensively on all aspects of facial surgery and the treatment of conflict-related injuries, including articles in the Journal of Craniofacial Surgery, The Lancet Oncology, Epidemiology and Infection, and the International Journal of Infectious Diseases, amongst many others. He is also an eloquent advocate, frequently featured in international media to shed light on the humanitarian crises facing the Palestinian people. In April 2024, he was elected rector of the University of Glasgow, a testament to his remarkable standing in both medical and academic communities. The events in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023, where relentless bombardment and siege have led to widespread devastation, amplify the urgency of Dr. Abu-Sittah's voice. As someone who has witnessed the consequences of Israel's genocidal violence, his reflections offer a vital lens into the human cost of conflict and the broader implications of policies that perpetuate such suffering. His lecture this evening will undoubtedly challenge us to confront the systemic nature of the violence in Gaza and the moral imperative for international solidarity. The lecture's timing on the 29th of November, the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, underscores its significance. This day, recognised by the United Nations, serves as a reminder of the global responsibility to support Palestinians in their quest for justice and self-determination. Dr. Abu-Sittah's work embodies this call for action, combining medical practice with advocacy to highlight the resilience of those enduring unimaginable hardship. His lecture promises to be a profound moment of truth-telling, urging us to bear witness to the realities of genocide and stand in solidarity with those who are resisting oppression. So I hand over to Dr. Ghassan, who is live with us from Beirut. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and thank you very much, BRISMES, for this opportunity and this invitation. In today's conversation, what I would like to do is describe how over the last 2 months, working in the health system in Lebanon, I have been able to see what now can be called the Gaza template, being for the first time applied as a central tenet of Israeli military doctrine beyond Palestine. And that template holds the centrality of the dismemberment of the health system as a critical component of the conduct of war. I will then describe what I believe is happening in Gaza through the creation of what we can call the biosphere of genocide, an ecology where the physical, the biological, the social have all been created in a mechanism by which they separately and together contribute as killing machines in the genocidal project. And then at the end, I would like to talk about liberation medicine and how liberation medicine has been central to the Palestinian struggle. And now what we watch in Palestine and in Lebanon as becoming almost as a form of resistance that returns to the 1960s and has overcome the saviorism of humanitarianism to return to acts of solidarity, acts of steadfastness, rather than charity and resilience. So over the last 2 months, we have watched Israel destroy the Lebanese health system in a systematic dismemberment in a way that is very similar to the one we saw in Gaza. One of the lessons learned from the previous wars in Gaza meant that the Lebanese health system had created advanced trauma stabilization points, followed by field hospitals, followed by frontline hospitals, and then the patients are transported back to hospitals further north, either in Saida or in Beirut itself. And during the last 2 months, we have seen how Israel has intentionally targeted the ambulance and paramedic services trying to evacuate the wounded, with the killing of over 150 paramedics and ambulancemen, then bombed the trauma stabilization points and the field hospitals, with lots of the doctors and the paramedics stationed at these hospitals being killed. And then through the targeting of the perimeter and the areas surrounding these hospitals, managed to take 8 of the hospitals in Lebanon completely out of service, 4 in the south, and a further 4 in Beirut itself in the southern suburb. And so we can see that from the very beginning of this two-month war, now what we had been warning about over the last year, which is that the dismantlement and the destruction of the health system is now a critical component of Israeli military doctrine. And the aim of that doctrine is unlivability. The conversion of South Lebanon into an unlivable space was the same as the conversion of Gaza into an unlivable space. The destruction of all health facilities is a critical component in both places for the Israelis that now aim to have these places devoid of any population, fulfilling Benny Morris's demands in the 90s when he wrote in Ha'arts about the need, the mistake of allowing populations to remain as the mortal threat against the settler colonial project. In Gaza today, the Israelis killed the head of the intensive care unit in Kamal Udwan Hospital in the north, the only hospital left in the northern part of Gaza, bringing to almost 1,000 the health workers who have been killed in Gaza, and further denuding the health system, which began with the attack on Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital and on the 17th of October, and then was followed by the destruction of all of the hospitals, the repeated attacks on Shifa Hospital, and the insistence that Shifa first and then later on Nasser Hospital and Khan Yunis become mass graves, almost in a way to insist that these spaces of healing become spaces of death. And we saw how in Shifa, unlike massacres everywhere else, the Israelis insisted on burying the 400 doctors, nurses, and patients that they had killed in very shallow graves in the courtyard of the hospital, so that they would be very quickly discovered. And then a similar process happened in Nasser and Khan Yunis later on. And that is not by accident, but by design. That a critical component of this dismantling of the health system is to turn spaces of healing and health into spaces of death and massacre. The destruction of the health system in Gaza, particularly, is a critical component of what we now have seen Gaza turning into, which is a biosphere of genocide. And by biosphere, it is the space that people inhabit, that is their social, biological, and physical space. And by turning Gaza into a biosphere of genocide, Israel is ensuring that not only do the bombs and the quadcopter drones and the missiles kill the people of Gaza, but that there are separate, autonomous killing machines that happen. One is the destruction of the health system, which not only means that the wounded die of preventable and manageable wounds, but that people with chronic illnesses die when these chronic illnesses left untreated become life-threatening illnesses, like diabetes, like high blood pressure, heart disease, that women again start to die as they deliver in substandard and dangerous conditions. Then we look at the physical, the destruction of over 85% of houses, the tens of thousands of tons of rubble. All of this has led to the destruction of the habitat and the water and sewage system, which in itself then has created its own drivers of mortality and morbidity within society. And so infectious diseases and hypothermia, particularly now in Gaza, as a result of living in tarpaulin tents exposed to the elements, are also part of the killing machine. Another one of the biosphere's killing machines is the intentional famine. Malnutrition is like an iceberg. The acute malnutrition only constitutes the tip of the iceberg. But we know that when a wounded person also has malnutrition, they would die of lesser wounds. That when people who have malnutrition have an infectious disease as a result of the breakdown in public health infrastructure, they will die of lesser disease. And so what we're witnessing again as the winter enters is what doctors in Gaza call the triad of death, which is wounding, hypothermia, and malnutrition. And that now constitutes why, although the number of those counted as dead only lies at 45,000, we estimate that the real number, which the Lancet had estimated several months ago at 186,000, really is more towards the 250,000 to 300,000, which really is almost 15 to 20% of Gaza's current population. And so the bombs also almost recede back to being a background killer to sustain this biosphere of genocide rather than a critical component of the genocidal killing machines. My last point, and I'm much keener to engage in discussion rather than give you my points, is what we can see in the steadfastness and the stories from the health workers in Palestine. The stories of Dr. Ghassan Abu-Sittah, who remains at Adwan, the doctors in Al-Ahli Hospital, the doctors who remain as a critical component of Palestinian society's resistance to the killing machine. And I think one can trace that back to almost the beginning of modern Palestinian liberation ideology. From the very beginning in the 50s, we saw the emergence of these clinics in the refugee camps in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria, as Palestinians were graduating from the medical schools in the region and setting up these clinics as a contribution to the liberation of the Palestinian movement. And then with the creation of the PLO and the centrality of the Palestine Red Crescent Society as a founding component of the PLO, and then the history of the Palestine Red Crescent Society in Lebanon against the backdrop of continuous Israeli air raids, and then the massacres, the siege in Tal al-Za'atar, the siege of Beirut in '82. And then we saw that thread of Palestinian liberation medicine in the first Intifada, with the emergence of the Union of Palestine Medical Relief Committees, the Union of Health Workers. And so there seems to be something unique, or particularly unique, within Palestinian liberation politics that centers medicine, the provision of healthcare, the provision of health as a critical component of the resistance to the politics of death of settler colonialism. And it seems to now, during this genocide, really have emerged in a clear way with the targeting of the health system and the resistance of the health workers to that targeting. Globally, we saw this conversation, interestingly enough. Initially, one can think about Che Guevara's revolutionary doctor speech, where he admitted that medicine was, during the revolution, taking second place to the victory of the revolution, which would then provide the kind of healthcare that people needed as part of the victory of the revolution. And then we go through the contributions of Frantz Fanon, centering liberation medicine as part of the Algerian liberation movement, and centering the provision of healthcare, whether it's mental or physical healthcare, as part of the anti-colonial struggle. And then, unfortunately, although it persisted within the Palestinian sphere, it was very quickly taken over and replaced through humanitarianism. And the fake insistence that humanitarianism needs to be neutral, as if there is anything neutral about wars. And I believe that one of the many casualties of the war in Gaza is this liberal concept of humanitarian neutrality. And the failure of the humanitarian organizations in Gaza to make any meaningful impact and to allow even themselves to become drawn into what you can call the humanitarianization of the genocide, for me, has ended this epoch of humanitarian medicine. And we're back in a position where openly we see liberation medicine being central to the struggle against the necropolitics of settler colonialism and the creation of death spaces such as Gaza, such as South Lebanon. So I'm going to keep this brief because I'm much more interested in having a conversation with your members. And I'll end it at that. Thank you very much.